I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land upon which this podcast is recorded, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror.
Dark Mirror with Jessicka Ann.
Welcome to Dark Mirror. It is me, your host, Jessicka Ann, and today's episode with Laura Grady was one that I was so excited to record. Laura is one of those minds that I could just pick all day, and she has such a grasp of being able to translate the psychological, scientific elements of manifestation and bringing them down into real, grounded, practical results, and still integrating the woo. And so in this conversation, we really talk about the dangers of dogma and how sometimes we get so rigid inside our own belief systems that we stop getting curious. And as people in leadership, as people that are in the business of people, that can often become a very dangerous place to be. If you're not familiar with Laura, she has been a coach for just coming up to a decade now. And over that time, she has helped thousands of people to rewire their subconscious beliefs and start manifesting like pros. She's also got a bachelor in psychology, as well as having studied to expand her own psychic abilities. So I love people that are able to bridge those worlds. She's definitely one of my kind of humans. So without further ado, here's my episode with Laura Grady. The first question I wanted to ask you, Laura, is what has been your journey with extremism?
My journey with extremism is that I have been super extreme. I have had really extreme views in the space, I think, around coaching and around science. And I have found that throughout my experience, when I first got into this industry, I went down the typical NLP pipeline, which you know well. I think everybody listening to this knows well. And there can be a lot of extremist thinking around that pipeline if you keep going down it and you only go down that route. And it opened my mind to a lot that was going on. But I then I felt like I knew so much, and that feeling of, oh, I know so much now, I can help anybody, I can do whatever I need to do, became almost like a cage and a trap, because I actually didn't know that much and I had a lot more to learn. And so I was extreme in my views. I was very polarizing in my views, and on social media that, does well. But the more that I have become educated, so, doing a degree in psychological science, right? And then working working in the psychic mediumship space, working with energy, working with mentors like yourself, your perspective opens up. And as a result of learning so much and being on this journey since 2017, like late 2017, I'm like, wow, there's so many theories, they all intertwine, they all overlap. And the more that I feel like I know, the less that I know, and the more nuance I feel like I have with all of my work, if that makes any sense.
It's interesting because one of the things that you mentioned there is around how well extreme points of view do on social media.
Oh, so well. So well.
What is it that you think drives that, aside from the fact that we all love to get our adrenaline and we like to be aroused by being annoyed, but
Yes.
what is it that actually what creates the magnetism?
I believe what creates the magnetism is that an extreme take can rub up against your viewpoint and what you believe to be true, and everybody is searching. This is my feeling right now. I could change my mind on this, so just be very, very aware. I feel like people are looking for a fix, especially when you get into the personal development space and you get into the spiritual space and all of these places, you're looking for answers and you want something to fix it. And so an extreme take is either like, whoa, that's not the answer. That's so what are you talking about? Or it's, oh my gosh, I have the answer. When it's like, actually, we need to sit more in uncertainty. And yes, there's pieces of it, but I'm big on manifestation, for example. I love manifestation, but it's a theory and it's flawed. It doesn't work for everyone at all different times of life. And for me to say that it does is kind of insane. There's different times, different seasons that work with different aspects of our work. And so yeah, I think it's really magnetizing because we are looking for a fix. We are looking for answers. And when we see something that we deeply disagree with, we're like, whoa, no, I'm not in that camp. And then the opposite is true of like, oh my gosh, I have the answer. Great. This is awesome.
I really resonate with that. I think particularly in to paraphrase, because like the irony is I've been doing a lot of deep dives around history. But
Yeah.
let's just say for this pocket of time, high uncertainty,
Yeah.
high uncertainty, certainty becomes extremely attractive. This idea of being able to have the answer or to know what the answer is not, as you put it, it's like it's essentially it's the same kind of spectrum. But what is it about uncertainty that challenges people so much?
So much. Like, it's like, oh, where do I even go with that?
Well,
We all hate it. I'm if I can talk from my own experience and from my clients' experiences, every single client that I have had and that I've worked with has massive goals on their heart, and when they're not there, they have to sit in the uncertainty of what's going to happen, what curveballs are going to be swung their way. And in many, many places, I tend to find that it's because the personal development, the NLP side of things can tell you this almost lie that you won't ever experience doubt. Like, you drop into emotion, you don't feel it again. And I was talking to this with a friend yesterday of like, yeah, you do it once, you never have to touch it again. And that is incredibly appealing because people are overwhelmed by the idea of this being an ever growing process and having to face off with your shit. I tend to find for myself what has been freeing was when I actually realized that there is so much that I have control over, so much I don't, and it's okay that both of those things exist. It was like, holy shit, this is the most freeing take on the planet. And then with that, you just build the self-trust to be able to hold and handle anything, the ups, the downs, because all of it's going to happen. And doing this inner work, healing, doing the work that you do, doing the work that I do with my clients on a really deep subconscious level, that doesn't mean that they're never going to experience contrast and some really difficult experiences. What it will mean is that their ability to handle it and hold it is just expanded tenfold. Like, I went through a very challenging pregnancy last year with my second daughter that rocked my fucking world. Like, it was horrific in every sense of the word. And that was the true definition of dealing with contrast. And coming out the other end of it, what has been really beautiful is that it didn't break me, and it could have broken me. Like, it was hospital visits the entire time, a lot of uncertainty, vomiting 10, 20, 30 times a day, like, just couldn't walk on my own, like, had to have a disability seat, had to be monitored when I was showering, I actually couldn't walk. I couldn't even get down the halls of my house without having to clutch onto the walls. So it's that level of, like, that's a lot of uncertainty. And I think that, this work that we do gives you the ability to hold and handle a lot more. But it also means that when the good stuff is there, you're really enjoying it. You're really soaking it in too.
First of all, thank you for, like, one of the things I love about you is you are so honest. It's like your ability to just speak to that experience with such transparency, because I think that it can be very attractive, particularly in the positions that we find ourselves, to sort of top line a lot of that. It's like, oh, it was really hard. And anyway, so next thing, and I'm just going to flip over the top of it. But it's like,
well, it's good marketing. It works for marketing. I hate to say it, guys. It is very appealing. Imagine if I said if I just skimmed the surface and said, yeah, that happened, and I never have anything that pops up around that anymore. That's a fucking lie. You do. You probably just don't want to admit that you do. Like, of course stuff is going to come up when you deal with something that traumatic. It's trauma. Like, you have to move it through. You have to keep going with it.
It's an interesting thing, because I could see somebody else in a similar position to you go through the same experience and decide that the work doesn't work.
Oh, yeah.
So what has been your journey with reconciling that experience alongside knowing that you have proof that the work does work? Like, how have you kind of untangled that?
Uh, so the work, I'm a big believer. So the way that I kind of phrase this and make sense of all of this is that for me, my pregnancy last year was incredibly traumatic, and there were definitely moments where I was like, is there like this whole idea of the universe? Is anything listening? God, whatever it might be, just like what the hell is actually happening here? This is insane, right? There was that thought that definitely came up. There's no two ways about it. And I had to manage it. And I started to realize though, if I had been dealing with what I dealt with last year, 5 years ago, I do think it would have broken me. Like, I do think that my ability to hold that level of discomfort, uncertainty, and just general pain, it was actually just really painful. Like, the whole thing was really, really painful. If I hadn't had the inner work that I had done and the ability to be able to hold big emotions, to move through them when I needed to self-soothe, to bring a level of self-compassion, then I, I don't think I would be standing here in the way that I am. So I think that for myself, it's like the reason why I believe so deeply in this work is because I don't think it's like a quick fix or a fix in your life. What I believe it does for the right person is it arms you with the tools and the self-trust to be able to move through anything in life and to be able to set goals and achieve them, and not necessarily hate yourself in the pursuit of them. So I think that's the biggest thing for me at the moment is, there's been a lot, like I love manifestation, and I think that two things can be true, where it's like you can attract and you can attract a lot, and the world can be a mirror, and at other times shit happens and it is what it is. Is there theories that say that you attracted it and it came from a past life? Yes, there's those theories. Is it helpful when you went through something super traumatic? Maybe not. Maybe there's a time for that in a couple of years. Right now, I'm like, that's not helpful. So it's helpful, like different parts of this work can be helpful at different phases and times. It's just figuring out what that's going to look like for you and releasing the pressure on how your life should look, on who you should be, and all of those bits and pieces. And I find it's really freeing. Like, I've had a lot of clients that have been recently coming to me that have dealt with some big stuff, dealt with a lot of contrast, and they're wanting to kind of, process that, move through that, and now, have big goals for themselves again. And if we're sitting in the shame of, oh no, this thing happened to me, it must mean that the work doesn't work, then how are you meant to move forward? It's just not helpful. It's just not helpful.
Big time. I have this conversation often with my students, so when they're working through energetics, starting to learn about those imprints and the resonance and those pieces, which of course is part of it. But it's like, when do I stop looking for what's blocked? And what I say to them is, when you look for what's blocked when you're not moving.
Yep.
It's like, it's recognizing, like, I guess I have a very utilitarian point of view around the work, because it's like, what's the utility of this specific belief given the context?
Yes. Oh, I totally agree with you. Like, I'm not gonna go deep, like digging into your energy and digging into all this stuff unless it's impeding on where you're trying to go and it's slowing you down. Because some stuff, it's like, we could look forever. Like, we could, you never get out of that.
And the utility of the belief of I create everything when you are in deep pain. Sometimes it's not the belief that's actually going to allow you to move.
Yeah, it assigns. I also just don't think it's true. Like, let's just be totally frank and totally honest. Like, if that is true, if that is a whole truth, then what do we say about people in war-torn countries? What do we say about the children that are being born into those? It just can't. It's not true for everyone. So it's kind of looking at, that can be a really powerful belief in the right context, and it can really help you if you've got big goals on your heart and there's a big thing that you're trying to create and you notice that you are sabotaging a little bit. That is a really helpful perspective. But when you're going through something that is really it's just, there's a lot that's actually out of your control, and your journey is to surrender into that, then it's not helpful. So it's just looking at, like, if for one person in one context, it's not limiting. The idea that I attract everything would not be limiting. For myself, if I were to move forward, that would be a limiting belief for me, but it's not a limiting belief for someone else. It's all about the context of the person, what they're going through, what they've navigated, the traumas, the experiences in life. And, you know, for some people, like I've had clients where it's actually, they've dealt with severe sexual trauma. And for them, it has helped them to go down that path. I don't necessarily I'm not fully behind it, but it's not my job to be fully behind it. My job is to work with your beliefs where you're at this moment in time. And if that's helpful, fantastic. But, you know, it's lots of truths can be true, and it's whatever truth is going to be supportive. Obviously, for me in those perspectives, I'm like, hey, we don't, like, that doesn't have to necessarily be true. It might be, I don't know. And I'm comfortable in sitting in the I don't knows and working with somebody with their model of the world and sitting in that, and we move from there.
There's a really important point that you mentioned there about working with someone from their model of the world. I feel like, given that a lot of the people that will be listening to this podcast are in positions of leadership, people that are coaching, facilitating, when someone is locked inside an extreme viewpoint, and our role as the coach and facilitator is to meet them where they're at, how do you go around navigating where you see that this is actually something like a reality construct that's limiting them, but it's so far entrenched?
Often, usually the stuff that's really far entrenched, it comes from people who have been doing the work for a long time. So they often get stuck. It's so fascinating because their belief system that initially set them free becomes their own trap. And that's what happened to me. So I understand that feeling really, really well. And I think that it's, like, obviously offering a lot of grace and everything, but it's also opening up those different perspectives. And I often sit in the, okay, honestly, it's so simple, but it's really coming back to, if I'm your client and I'm sitting in this position and this is what I've just gone through, what do you think is helpful? Do you think that model is helpful? Do you think this is supportive for that person or not? So I kind of, we just flip it a little bit. And I'm gentle. I'm very gentle in my approach with these sorts of things because it's messy and it's really sticky and it can feel really, really, really tough. But I also know that I am proof of the fact that you can be kind of stuck in some very extreme, unintentionally quite extreme thinking. And it's crazy because, like, looking back at the time, it wasn't that extreme, but it felt extreme. Like, the impacts of it felt quite extreme to me. And come out the other end and just go, okay, what if this wasn't the whole truth? What if this truth exists only, it's not everywhere, and that's okay. It is what it is.
One thing that I've sort of felt you mention a couple of times, but I also just wanted to circle back to because I feel it's a really important point, is that extremism is often a substitute for certainty, and that certainty that we seek externally is really a substitute for a lack of self-trust.
Always.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is self-trust, it sort of comes back to that initial idea of knowing oneself.
Yes.
What is it that why is it that we struggle so much to trust ourselves? If we're spending 24/7 with the person that we are, why is it that we get stuck looking for everything outside of ourselves rather than looking in?
I mean, look at the world we live in. Of course we don't trust ourselves. Like, it's just, of course we struggle with that. Of course, a lot of people face off against that because we're told to outsource our power a lot. And there's also going to be areas that even if you know some things intuitively, there's also stuff where it's like we actually don't know because, there's certain things where I look at and I'm like, okay, I'm not a medical doctor. Cool. Like, that's an area that I don't know anything about. So, it's one of those things where there's actually a lot of there's so much information. It can be really difficult to trust yourself. And I think that it's a product, and I think I'm butchering how I'm describing this, but I do think it's in so many ways a product of the environment that we live in, because it's very hard to make money off of somebody who really trusts themselves. in this day and age. Like, if you really deeply trust yourself, you deeply like yourself, you're going to spend less money on dumb shit. Our whole industry exists because people struggle to trust themselves. Like, it's the whole world, it profits off of it. So of course, like, feeding this cycle perpetually is just going to continue to happen. And your relationship with yourself is ever changing. Like, I know for myself, I've had moments where I'm in total trust of myself, and then I've had moments where I'm not. And that changes, like a relationship with a friend, like a relationship with a partner, like a relationship with anyone in your life. Sometimes it's really smooth and it's great. And then other times stuff happens and it gets really fucking wonky. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It means you're a human living a human life. So your relationship with yourself is going to change. But also, I do think that there are larger factors at play that are not making it easier for us.
I couldn't help but laugh, but it's like recognizing that there are systems stacked to help undermine self-trust. As you say, it's like it's an engine that suits a consumer, and it's a consumer-driven environment. And it can be almost paradoxical in that for people that are selling work that helps people know themselves, also in some ways benefiting from a system that perpetuates a lack of knowing oneself.
Oh yeah.
So what does ethical business look like in this context?
Oh, I don't know where to go with that. If I'm honest, I have a lot of thoughts on it. Ultimately, yeah, we live in a capitalist society. There's no two ways about it. We all have to make money. We all have to make a living, and I think that, I have beautiful people in my life who are some of the best people on the planet, and like, they sell some pretty crazy shit because they're not in our industry. So if they don't have to like look too deeply at that, why do we, kind of thing? But at the same token, there is a moral responsibility that I can't run away from. And that none of us can run away from, around doing what is ethical and staying in integrity as much as you can. And, I always say this to everybody, you're not always going to get that right, but you have to do whatever you can to make it right. So what I mean by that is that, sometimes there's been clients that have come into my space, and I've very rarely, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, there are some other pieces coming up here that actually feel out of my scope, and I would recommend that you go do XYZ as a result, because I'll make it right. But I'm not always going to get it right, because you're not always going to clock. Like, yes, do you get better at those sorts of things? Of course. But you can't clock everything all the time. Imagine if you could. Wouldn't that be a beautiful world?
It's funny in some ways, yes, but I also think you'd probably be paralyzed.
Yes. Yep.
Which is kind of what I noticed for a lot of very intelligent people in this space, is that they're crossing bridges 3 plays ahead of where they actually are.
Yes.
And like that willingness, like what you said around fucking it up fundamentally, but then also knowing that you're the person that will come back and repair or learn or evolve. Like, I feel that's part of why I wanted to create this project, is to have these kind of conversations that sometimes linger on the periphery of a lot of the spaces that we find ourselves in, because they're kind of uncomfortable to reconcile with, hey, we're profiting from the system that actually makes people feel broken.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's messy. The world's messy. These topics are also messy, and what I've landed on, I don't know that I would have landed on the same thoughts 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, because, as you evolve, your way of seeing the world evolves too. So I completely get that. I think that for myself, because I care so much to a fucking fault. Like, when I have a client working with me, I genuinely give the biggest shit about it. Like, I really, really fucking care. And I used to really hate myself for that. And I used to beat myself down about it, because it was a hindrance in some ways, because there was like the over responsibility wound, where I would take way too much responsibility for somebody in their growth. And that is like a cage around them, because how are they meant to feel freedom you know, on an energetic level, it's like if you feel like you've got a mother hovering over the top of you 24/7, you've got no freedom to explore, and there's too much pressure on the client. So I've definitely dealt with that early in my career, and I've had to work on that a lot, which you know more than anyone because I've worked with you on a lot of these over responsibility pieces as time has gone on. But you know, I really genuinely care. I really fucking care about my clients, and I see it as such an honor. Like if you're going to trust me with your journey and trust me with your most vulnerable experiences, and with this, and vulnerability is like when you have a massive goal and you haven't got there yet, and you feel like you keep coming up against an invisible wall, like you're walking through mud. That is deeply vulnerable. Like that is a vulnerable thing to admit to somebody, and to say that you want to change and move through, and it's such an honor to me to work with somebody around that. So I really fucking care. I used to beat myself up for it. I think it's my biggest strong suit now, is the fact that I really care. And, you know, and within that, recognizing I really care, but I'm not always going to get it right. I'm always going to do whatever I can to make it right. It's been freeing to make that decision about myself, and, you know, do whatever I can to operate within integrity. And, you know, there's always those like shiny, what are they called? The shiny
Object syndrome.
Shiny object syndrome. There's always that in our industry, because there's always like, there's a lot of money to be made. Don't get me wrong. Like there's a lot that you can do, and everyone at some point will fall into the shiny object syndrome of like trying to take things to a whole other level. And I've personally just found for myself that I have such a strong internal compass that I can't not listen to. So I have to do what I want to do, and it's always looked a little bit different. Oftentimes it's looked a little bit different to what a lot of other people do in the online space. At least what I have felt is that, you know, I've had friends that go off in one way and they've gotten involved in some really cult-like thinking and behavior, and I've been like, something's wrong, I don't like it, see you later. Like, I can't do that, see you later. So yeah, I think, I don't even know what we were initially talking about, but there's my rant.
I feel like there's some pockets in there that are really important to speak to, because one of the things that we touched on like was cult-like thinking, which really brings us back to this topic of extremism. One of the things that, you know, it is human nature for us to swing the pendulum. It's like on one hand, as you mentioned, there was a sense of like this over responsibility, feeling trapped inside it.
Yes.
And yet I don't see you as someone that has then swung in the opposite direction and decided you're just going to, you know, burn whoever I need to burn to get to where it is that I'm going.
No,
how is it that the cults get you?
See, here's the thing. Like, I'm not an expert in the cults, so this is not my forte. I can speak to what I've seen with people in my life that have kind of gotten quite swept up in some thinking that was, at the end of the day, very harmful for them and caused a lot of pain. Like for myself, I went through a lot of pain having relationships with these people that, you know, they will admit they treated me like absolute shit when they got swept up in a coaching part of their world that did a lot of damage and was very, very harmful. And they, you know, that was very painful. I think that what is appealing is that sense of certainty, is that high vibe experience of like feeling effectively on top of the world. That's what I'm presuming. Again, I don't know. I have found myself, I've never really I've tampered and dabbled in that kind of thought process, and I've tried it on and it's never felt good, so I can't stick with it. So I don't know if that's just my internal compass or just knowing who feels safe to me and who doesn't feel safe to me. But, you know, if people have gotten caught up in some crazy thinking, it's okay, and they're not bad, they're not wrong. It's just it does prey on vulnerable people who really crave certainty. And probably community too. Again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm being very, very honest and upfront of I am not an expert in this space. I'm just speaking from what I have seen.
And I'm aware that I keep throwing you hard questions.
Very fucking hard questions, Jess. Thanks.
It's the reason why I wanted to speak to you. Like, I mean, I could have a cult expert in here and we could talk about the psychology of it. And one thing that a cult expert doesn't have is the felt sense experience of how these things manifest inside the little pocket of society we exist in.
Yeah.
And so to me, like, if you actually look at the steps for effective marketing and you put them alongside the steps for beginning a cult, there is often a correlation between those two things. So given that, what I really wanted to unpack with you is like, how do we find our center inside something that kind of is on a line? We are walking on a tightrope at any given time in terms of actually being okay with having influence.
I think that, yeah, big questions, Jess, big questions. I'm really curious that with whoever listens to this, like what their answers would be too, because I'm like, I feel like this is a huge discussion. Walking on this, tight line. It's interesting because there's certain pieces that I kind of want to pull out, and I have heard from people in our industry who say that they want a cult-like following. They want a cult-like clients. They want, and also people that use that word in the greater scheme of marketing in general of like, yes, we want a cult-like brand. And I think that, you know, really believing in something is really wonderful and really amazing. But we do have a responsibility to not, I think it's the responsibility of not only just showing the highlights and just being a little bit more honest. For myself, I crave authenticity. I crave real people. And the reason why there's a lot that I don't resonate in our industry with, because I think it's cowboy-like behavior, in the sense of like, it does lack integrity. It really does lack integrity. So yeah, I suppose in so many ways I'm like, you just have to remember that you do have a responsibility to be as honest as you can around all of this, and whatever that looks like for you, because what it's going to look like for you is going to be different to me. Like, I'm talking about a big trauma that I just dealt with last year. Not many people would feel that comfortable to do that straight off the bat, right? Like, everybody's at different phases of their journey, and that's okay. I think it's just reminding yourself that you do have a responsibility, and with that is beautiful, but it's I'm always mindful of like, don't let it become a trap. So yes, there's responsibility, and you're going to fuck it up. Like, you're going to be the ever learning expert, and that's something that I've had to come to terms with, of like, I am learning as much as I can all the time. I'm taking stock. I've learned from different people. I've gone down the science route. I've gone down the energetics route. I've gone down the heavy coaching route. I've done all of the different things to kind of learn as much as I can. And the more that I have learnt, the more that I recognize that different things work for different people at different times, and all of that's perfect. It's not a fault or a flaw. So I hope that helps to answer the question. I think it's just, nuance. We need more nuance.
And that's also part of why I keep throwing these big questions at you, is because not only are you very intelligent, very experienced in this space with, you know, as you mentioned, a lot of different, you have gone to different sections of this industry and seen what kind of exists inside those. And so what I'm loving about your responses is the nuance, is the fact that nothing is fixed. And I hope that that gives radical permission for the people that are listening to recognize that sometimes I don't know is the answer.
And that's a great answer. That's also a great answer. Like, I have found so much freedom in sometimes saying to a client, they'll pose a huge, like, I get clients who are also incredibly intelligent. They've done a shit ton of work on themselves. They are like high level corporate people, or they are, you know, thriving, like they're doing their business stuff. They are incredibly intelligent, right? And they pose these huge questions. And sometimes I'm like, hey, these are all of the different theories. Like, here's the psychological theory. Here's the science theory, the neuroscience theory. Here is the spiritual theory. And here is like the spiritual / energetics. And here's the coaching theory. there's all these, like all of it can answer it, but we have to I'm interweaving lots of different concepts, and they all do interweave. Like it's crazy how much things are interweaving. Like there's research now that's coming out about breath work that, 10 years ago was kind of scoffed at, whereas there is a lot that is backed by it that we have all been talking about and we have been sharing for years, but it's taken a little while for that world to catch up, but it is catching up, and it is catching up very fast, which is amazing. And I love it. I love reading research. So for those of you who are here, I always say to my clients, I'm like, what we do together is I am going to appeal to the different brains, your spiritual brain and your energetic side of things. And I'm going to appeal to the science who needs logic, because I need that. I put the woo in the science and the science in the woo. So it's like bringing together two worlds, which makes me sit on the fucking fence all the time with so much. And I love it.
And I think that it's funny because we're kind of, speaking of extreme viewpoints, we're kind of polarized on fence sitting these days. It's this idea of like, pick a side. If you are someone that's sitting in the middle, you don't really have a position, you're lacking clarity, whatever the story may be.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can really clearly see how that kind of viewpoint expands out into the macro.
Oh, yeah. I think the fact that I see all these different viewpoints, and I had this reflected back to me yesterday, the fact that I have this ability to see all of these different, like the science, the woo, merging those two things together and wanting nuance, that is in and of itself a hot take.
It is.
Because it's so uncommon. Like it's so uncommon to be like, the inner work works, and also shit can happen.
Yeah. and it's refreshing because it's not cherry picking information to fit into a very comfortable, neat context that we can very easily package and sell.
Yeah.
Coming back to those people that do see lots of different pathways, people that are engaging with these conversations where answers aren't as clear.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep moving forward in the face of uncertainty? Like, what are some of the things that you have found useful to kind of collapse the paralysis that can sometimes come from knowing and not knowing what you don't know?
I think that working with the right people makes a big difference. So I think, working with people in this space, especially if you are feeling paralyzed by it, that's an invitation to look deeper into it, because I don't want you to feel that way. I felt that way, and I've come to someone like Jess. I've done work with Jess on this before in the past, and it's been really, really magical and really supportive and helpful. I do this work with my own clients. I think being around people who do have nuanced takes, and also being comfortable with the idea of always being a student, is the best perspective to have. I'm constantly going to be a student. There is ever-changing evidence all the time. There's certain things that have come out in the last year that I never would have thought would have come out in the kind of like science, the psychological space that I would never have thought were going to come out. And it's really surprised me. And I've gone, wow, this is cool. That means that the way that I explain this to a client is going to be different now. So it's being comfortable with like, you can do as much as you can, and also know it's going to change because it's complicated. The whole thing's complicated. So be open to being a student, be open to getting it wrong and to doing whatever you can to make it right. And recognize that when we learn more, we can do more. When we are better equipped, we can have a better impact. So that's my take.
Yeah, it's big. And that to me is what embodied leadership is. It's that ability to not expect perfection, but actually show up in the reality that we're currently in its multifacetedness. I'm sure that people are listening to this and going to want more of you, Laura. How do they get involved? What do they do?
The best place to find me right now is just my Instagram. It's Laura Grady with 2 Ys. I do have TikTok as well. I think it's the same handle. I actually can't remember. Where I go into depth of these kinds of conversations and, of course, work with people. The only way to work with me at the moment is through a one-to-one capacity. Just I've had my second child, so I'm like not doing any kind of group stuff at the moment. But Yeah, it's an honor to have these conversations, Jess, and it's an honor to kind of get to speak to your audience about a topic that I know that a lot of people would feel a lot of resistance and discomfort around, and I hope it's brought a little bit of comfort to them.
Thanks so much, Laura, for your willingness to explore the edges with me.
Of course. Thank you.
I'll make sure all of Laura's details are in the show notes. Make sure you give her a follow if you're not already.